thick black lines, circles here. There's two other areas to the north, and then just adjacent to the proposed septic work in the tree line. As you can see on our proposal, these the red areas are proposed mitigation areas. There's one to the north that is 830 square feet, consisting of some white oak trees as well as blueberry bushes, kind of offset into two rows coming off of the existing wetlands. There's a secondary mitigation area, approximately 650 square feet in the southeast corner of the lot. That will be extended essentially from the wetlands again, where the existing tree line is, and out into the yard approximately 15 feet. Couple other things on this plan really associated with the septic, but you'll see the soil stockpiling areas. That's not really relevant to this scope of work. What else? We have erosion sedimentation control essentially surrounding the whole site, top to bottom, including along Lantern Lane and the site access as well as the repaving. So there's an area also designated with some debris and trash to be removed by hand, approximately in the areas of wetland flags 4 to wetland flag 8. Notes associated with all of that debris removal are shown on the plan. Let's see, we're proposing a crushed stone trench on the west and east sides of the driveway to help with runoff down towards Lantern Lane. Let's see. So jumping into the waiver request, we did request a waiver for disturbance within the 50-foot and 100-foot buffers to the wetland. The waiver, the waiver is necessary, because there's really nowhere else on site to put the driveway. So we're basically repaving it as it is, same location. So post-construction, really no change. Minimize the impacts to resource areas. As mentioned, we're proposing significant sedimentation controls around the system, dewatering area as required, and sedimentation control monitoring throughout the duration of the project. All work is in existing disturbed lawn area, really no grade changes, not changing any drainage patterns or affecting the wetlands post-construction. As mentioned, an existing brick patio is being removed as mitigation for the driveway width increase. Public interest, kind of a tough one. All we really have is, just allowing safer access onto the public right away, just getting rid of a deteriorated driveway, replacing it with clean flat pavement. So I guess, you go with a tripping hazard to people walking up to the house or getting in their cars, but that's really the benefit that we had come up with for the project. A couple notes from the staff report. Mostly consisting of the trees that were cut down. I just did some quick calculations, and it's approximately 20 trees between 12 and 36-inch caliber. So we're looking at approximately 400 inches of trees removed within the buffer zones, unpermitted. So, our proposal with this doesn't exactly offset that. We'd hope to consider a starting point, and we'll take the commission's input and increase it or change the scope of work as requested by the commission. Couple other comments about the stakes on site. Those have all been adjusted to reflect the updated plan. Comment number 4 was regarding plywood, bottles, carpets, trash in the wetlands. as mentioned, that area is shown to be cleaned out. So that's our first whack at this one. I don't know if anyone wants to lead on this.
Peter, could you just talk a little bit more about the location of the trees that were removed? I just want to make sure that I understand that.
So essentially everything west of, the existing tree line shown on here has pretty much been cut. So almost everything you see in the front yard has been cut. I believe there is the small northwestern corner of vegetation still existing. However, that's also intended to be removed for the install of the septic system. So for all intents and purposes, I'm going to say all or almost all of the individual trees shown on this plan have been removed.
Okay, and which buffer zone are they in? I'm having a hard time just seeing the distances here.
There's a lot going on. So the green is our BVW.
Yep.
Orange is the 50, and the 100 out here. So this area is outside the 100 BVW. However, it does fall within the 200 riverfront.
Okay.
So 200's out here. So with the exception of this little corner, the whole site is in jurisdiction due to riverfront.
Okay.
So I'd say half the trees are within the BVW 100-foot limits, but all of them are within the riverfront 100 and 200 foot.
Okay. Jen, staff comment here.
Just two things. So nice job, Peter, on your presentation tonight. You've covered everything. Well done. For the waiver, the public benefit, a portion of the restoration area is because of the tree removal in the last permit, and then the other half of it is as mitigation for this work. So for the waiver, mitigation is additional restoration work and removal of the impervious surface in the patio. The only other note that I have is when the compost is removed, we may want to take some of the add a few plants in that location so it's clear new homeowners aren't going to put their compost in that area too. That's it. Just those two comments. Thanks.
Questions or comments from members of the commission? So I just want to be clear that as a commission that we're okay with the restoration plan that Peter showed us.
Yeah, I think it's great. Covers everything, and yeah, it's good.
Okay.
Can't get those trees back, so I guess it's a good alternative.
Yeah. It's a start.
Right. Any public comment here for 10 Lantern Lane? Right, seeing none. Jen, I assume we're good to close? Are we waiting on anything here?
We did get a file number. So
Okay.
it's 152-1841. So yes, you can close.
Perfect. Motion to close the public hearing for 10 Lantern Lane.
Vecchio second.
Carol motion, Vecchio second, roll call vote. Carol, aye.
Rossman, aye.
80 aye.
Vecchio aye.
Motion to issue an order of conditions and permit for work for 10 Lantern Lane.
Vecchio second.
Carol motion, Vecchio second, roll call vote. Carol, aye.
Rossman, aye.
80 aye.
Vecchio aye.
Thank you, Peter.
Great, thank you all. Have a great night. We'll see you next time.
You too, Peter.
See you soon. Up next is continued hearings and possible deliberations. Mike,
Yep.
this one's you.
Not a problem. All right. So next up is 36 Norfolk Ave. This is for a notice of intent for construction of a building in addition.
Good evening. Hello, everyone. Walter.
How you doing?
Walter.
Good to see everyone again. Professional engineer, Hermano, consultant engineers tonight, again, meeting with you, representing Central Ceilings, 36 Norfolk Ave. Last time we met, we were in the throes of the notice of intent, nearing the end, and I believe the commission asked for a wetlands mitigation for the proposed undeveloped riverfront area that the applicant would like to use in order to put up his addition on his property. If I may share the plan.
Go right ahead.
While you're doing that, we're just going to say for the record that Ben Carroll recused himself from the meeting.
Awesome.
How is that? Can everyone see the site plan?
Yes.
We can. You want to, everyone, do we need him to zoom in? You guys all set? You guys can see. There we go. That looks pretty good.
So here's the overview of the whole site. I'll zoom in a little more. This is the proposed addition. 200-foot riverfront, 150, 100-foot BVW buffer zone, WPA and bylaw. And there's a 100-foot riverfront area. We are proposing to stay along this line and no further with this project. But this proposed mitigation area is in this neat little triangle right here, where we have red oak and white oak planned, as well as sweet pepper bush. In replacement of, I went out there to count these, we have about 20 Russian olives in this area, anywhere from a 1-inch to a 4-inch caliper that will be mechanically removed. And these other plantings will be either directly in their place or equally spaced as shown on this plan. That is the extent of the wetlands mitigation proposed. Does anyone have any questions so far?
No, I think Walt, I think you hit what we needed. Jen, was there any comment for you on this? I think that's really what we were looking for, correct?
That's all we were waiting for at the last meeting. And Walter provided it right away. So I had plenty of time to look at it. So yeah, you have everything you need to close.
Sweet. Any comments from our commission? Awesome. I'll open this up. Any comments to the public? Gonna go with seeing none. All right, Walter, you want to close?
Yes, I would like to close. Thank you very much.
All right, awesome. Jen, what should we do for why am I blanking?
So motion to close public hearing.
So moved. Roll call vote. Or second, sorry.
Well, I can make the motion. So so Mike made it and Nate, you seconded.
Second, yep. Roll call
Sure
vote.
did.
Great.
So Crossman, I. Whoa.
Spady, aye.
Vecchio, aye.
Awesome.
And then motion to issue the
Oh.
order of conditions.
So moved.
Yes. Oh, there you go. Second, roll call vote.
Crossman, I.
Spady, aye.
Vecchio, aye.
Excellent. Walter, you're good to go.
Thank you very much for your help in the project. Have a great night.
Thank you.
Take care.
I'm do I have to say anything? Like that I'm leaving?
Yeah, just we'll make a note that you have to leave the meeting, but thank you.
Thank you.
Ben,
Bye,
do you have
Nate.
to go?
Bye,
Seven.
Nate.
Bye, Nate.
Just noting for the record that Commissioner Crossman has left for the remainder of the meeting. It is 6:59 p.m. Up next is 98 Union Street, Lot 2. Notice of intent for the construction of a single-family home with utilities.
Good evening. For the record, my name is Scott Rogers from JK Home Engineering. Can I share my screen with you?
Yes, please.
Can you see it?
We're just seeing a file, like a folder.
Folder. All right. Hold
I
on.
think if you click through, it might work.
How about now? No.
Sorry, I muted myself. Still no. No.
I always have a hard time with the sharing.
Take your time.
Usually works best if you have it open before you log into Zoom and it's minimized on your desktop.
I got it.
Looks like a plan.
All right. I'm going to blow this up because we need to see better detail here. That, unfortunately, is the old plan. Sorry about that.
It's all right.
I apologize. I'm having a hard time with this.
Take your time. Wouldn't be a Zoom meeting without a little bit of Zoom troubleshooting.
Yeah, I can't get it to work, guys.
You want to stop sharing, open it on your computer and then try sharing again.
Yeah. You don't mind, I'm going to bring up AutoCAD. Can you see that?
We can see that.
All right. So the PDFs might be easier for you to read, but so we met before you March 17th, and this is for the second lot in this complex, if you will. So we heard some concerns about basically what we were doing on lot 2. So we made a bunch of changes. I want to run through those for you. You can see in this red outline here, that's the old location of the house. So we basically relocated the house further out of the resource areas. We also reduced the size of the house. That's now a 28 by 44 foot dwelling. We also relocated the driveway. So the driveway will now be located on the abutting parcel. And we are proposing to have an easement on lot, in 98 Union Street to accommodate that new driveway. We also reduced the size of the house as the number of bedrooms to 3-bedroom house. So that decreased the size of the septic system overall. That got smaller, obviously. With those changes that I just discussed, that allowed us to decrease the limit of work and also decrease the amount of regrading in the resource areas and the buffer zones. We also went out to the site, and there are trees that we discussed on Union Street. You can see that they're shown in kind of that gray color, with the ones that'll stay are with a red circle around them. So we located those trees on Union Street. The ones that we're able to save are obviously there are some that within septic system areas and some grading areas that will be removed, but we basically reduced the number of trees to be removed on the project considerably. And then we also proposed down in this location a buffer zone enhancement area. that's located down in this area right here. We also provided with the application a summary of the impacts. So we basically went from almost 2,800 square feet of impacts from the 0 to 100-foot riverfront area down to 0 square feet. And then from the 100 to the 200 foot, we went from about 12,600 to about 8,600 square feet or so. So we did a major reduction in the resource area impacts. And then last but not least, the applicant would like to discuss and present to you that there is and I'll zoom out a little bit so you can see what we're talking about. There is we're going to call it Lot 5 for the purpose of the discussion. There's a piece of land adjacent to these projects or these individual sites, lots. That's about a 12.5 acre parcel. So he's willing to purchase that piece of land and he'd be willing to discuss and potentially dedicate that or grant that parcel back to the town. So that particular parcel encompasses, I would say, about 80% of French Pond. There's a little area over here on the western side that's not part of that Lot 5, but he would be willing to purchase that property and dedicate that back to the town. So with that, I'd like to answer any questions that you may have.
So first off, I appreciate this really creative redesign here. I think it's become a much easier project for our consideration in a whole lot of ways. Hold on. Jennifer, would you mind beginning with staff comments? I just lost my
Sure.
notes here.
Yeah, it is an improvement to the last plan. I think you can probably enhance the buffer zone, replanting enhancement area a little bit more to meet the waiver requirements. That's it for me.
Questions or comments from members of the commission?
I really like purchasing or having them purchase the land above. I mean, looking at it now, and I've been over that way. It's having French Pond, that wetland, ours is pretty significant.
Yeah, Ben, I just wanted to say that I went as a site inspection with Jennifer last week. Site is a little tight, so I echo your comment, Ben, about how being very creative on this redesign, I think is going to be helpful. I think this plan is gonna work and be a lot better with this redesign. Like I said, this site is pretty tight, pretty small. It's pretty close to French Pond as well. So I think that, with the consideration of them buying that extra lot and donating it to the town, would be kind of helpful, especially kind of help ensure that we can kind of keep up on French Pond and keep it as a natural resource.
So Scott, to be clear, that would be a proposed public benefit here.
Absolutely.
Okay. Logistically, how would that work, right? I assume we would need to do some due diligence on our end as well.
I've never done this with the town of Easton. I've been involved with projects, but never been involved in the true, details of how it happens. But the client will purchase the property, and I imagine between his attorney, they can, create a deed. I'd work with Jennifer or Stephanie Danielson to figure out exactly how that has to happen from a legal point of view, I guess. But the intent is for him to purchase it and donate it to the town.
Okay.
I'm just going to add a couple of things. I don't know where to start. I guess that I would make sure it's clear that this was a proposal that was brought to the commission, not something that the commission had proposed, just so it's clear there's no sort of conflicts here, that that's something the applicant has proposed. Number two, we do need to do site inspections of that property and make sure that there's clear title. There's no dams, there's no structures, there's no encroachments from any other property. Those things could take longer than the time frame the property owner might want to do in order to start construction of the house. So just something to think about. Ooh, I will not accept anything with a dam on it. I'll say that right now. If there's a dam, we are not accepting that. And so it's a little, because it seems like you can make a decision based on Wetland Protection Act, the state law. You can make a decision based on the bylaw or the waiver requirements. But looking at additional property may really require more of a continuance than making it a condition.
Okay. I think I understand that.
Just logistically, there's a lot more that goes into accepting property, and all the taxes have to be paid. I have a whole procedure of how to donate property with examples of the deed, the model deed, and the language that needs to be in it, which we do give for anybody else who proposes to donate property. I also have not been part of this where it's part of a permit application. So I think, we want to be clear in our findings, clear in the legal document that the commission isn't requiring this in order to get the permit. This is something the applicant is proposing. As the public benefit in order to get the waiver.
Does that make sense, Scott? I think that piece is particularly important.
I think I understand it. So it sounds like we could potentially have this approved. It wouldn't be conditional, but we would follow through with the purchase and the donation if it was acceptable to the town. That's the way I read it.
I think we also need a continuance to do some due diligence on the property and make sure it's an appropriate piece that we would accept as an independent donation.
Okay.
Am I right, Jen?
Yeah, and then you have to think of how are you going to condition the property if you do accept land transfer as part of the waiver? Because then you wouldn't really be allowing work to start until the transfer happens. But if your client is looking to start construction soon, then perhaps enhancing the buffer zone enhancement on that property itself might be the better way to go on that one.
Agreed.
So maybe that's something to just chat about with your client, Scott, while we have the continuance, and we can look at the property and think about how we would write the permit.
So focus on the buffer zone enhancement improvements again.
I think those are the two options that you're sort of proposing.
Right.
So depending on your time frame, you may want to choose one versus the other.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
I think so.
Okay. And our next meeting is 2 weeks away, so it's not very long.
Yeah, that's a blink. So that's the 21st, right?
Oh, I'm sorry, 22nd.
Yeah.
No, hold on.
The 21st is Patriots Day.
It is today. The 28th is the next meeting.
Okay, so it's 3.
Today is the 7th.
Yes.
14, 28, sorry. I'm the one that's saying correctly.
So it's our next
three
meeting.
weeks away. Sorry. Sorry, Scott.
April 28th.
Scott, you almost really messed up my Patriots Day plans. All right. So let's open this to public comment. Anybody here for public comment on 98 Union Street? All right, seeing none. Scott.
There is. I tried to promote her, but it didn't work, apparently. I'm going to do
Weird,
it.
I didn't even see a hand up.
Yeah, no, it's Felicity. Yep.
Felicity, it appears to us that you're promoted, but we can't hear you or see you yet. So again,
on my screen, it's the bottom left where you can show your video and unmute yourself.
You got it?
Yeah.
we can hear you. We cannot see you, but we can hear you.
Hi, Felicity Kagan, 75 Union Street. I've been here for 40 years. I've noticed on the FEMA floodplain maps and the Mass DEP wetlands that it is notated that on the northeasterly side of 98 Union Street, the north side of 98 Union Street, and a bit of the northwesterly side of 98 Union Street, it's all wetland. It's not necessarily the French Pond, but the ground level is considered a wetland. And if another point is that the FEMA floodplain maps, which note that the area, the top part of the northeastern through French Pond, Dorchester Brook, they have made a point, the fact that these floodplains, and specifically the French Pond and the area south of me, Zone A floodplain, likely to flood out in a 100-year storm. They say they have a 50% accuracy rate, that during a 100-year storm, it's more likely to flood out than it is indicated on the floodplain maps, Zone A floodplain. So that includes Benson 98 Union Street's property as well. So it runs the risk of being flooded out if the current flood maps, Zone A flood maps, are only 50% accurate.
Okay. Scott, is this in a mapped FEMA flood zone?
The site is in a flood zone, but it's not a mapped elevation. So we took the floodplain zone from the map and we basically digitized it, if you will, for lack of a better term, onto the plan, and it just shows that we're out of it, obviously. It's not in a zone AE, it's in a zone A.
Okay.
Likely to flood out in a 50% of the time in a 100-year storm. And they say those maps are only 50% accurate, the FEMA floodplain maps. So there you have it.
Thank you for your comment.
Okay.
So Scott, based upon our conversations, I assume you'd like a continuance?
I would like to continue till April 28th, please.
Okay. Motion to continue 98 Union Street Lot 2 to the April 28th meeting of the Easton Conservation Commission.
Vecchio second.
Carol motion, Vecchio second, roll call vote. Carol, aye.
Spady, aye.
Vecchio aye.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Have a good night.
You too. Up next is 290 Turnpike Street, which is a notice of intent for the expansion of an existing infiltration basin.
I'm assuming Nick Marioni is here for that, but he's not being promoted. Oh, here he goes. And we do have one hand raised, Ben, after Nick.
Sorry, to present.
I'm assuming it's in a butter comment, but I don't know where Nick keeps going. Okay, he's joining.
I also see a Kevin Davis Board of Health agent. Is that for the presentation or is that a comment, if you know?
Yeah, I'm here. Kevin's going to do the presentation, but I'm here.
Okay.
Kevin's doing the presentation. Is he from ET Engineering?
Yes, Kevin Davis.
Okay. Maybe he could rename himself.
Good afternoon.
Hey, Kevin.
I can now rename myself. It wouldn't let me while I was a non-participant.
Oh, I see. Okay,
I've been stuck in that situation. No problem.
So I do apologize. Doing
That's
it right
okay.
now, so there's no
I thought you
confusion.
were an abutter.
I was trying to raise my hand at the very onset of the meeting so I could change it, and I Google food how to do it, but I needed to be able to right-click myself. So there we go.
Okay, thank you.
So my name's Kevin Davis. I'm representing ET Engineering. I'm a professional engineer. So this should be really quick, Ben, so you should make your 7:30 cutoff. So I understand Mr. Dias has sent some comments, but we haven't had a chance to reflect those changes on the plan set yet. So we're going to request a continuance for the next meeting with the caveat with the conservation's approval that we directly correspond with Eric Dias with any additional comments he may have. So when we bring the plan set for the next meeting on April 28th, I heard it, that it's complete and all changes are reflected on the plan. So hopefully we can have a final meeting on that.
Okay, so I just have an email letter, not a formal letter from Eric yet, but it sounds like you guys have coordinated a little bit.
Not directly, no.
Okay.
But I understand that he was working on some comments. So
Okay, so once Eric finalizes the letter, then we'll take a look at it. If you want to have a Zoom meeting, we can just get together and go over that in order to
Great.
move that portion along. We probably do want to know from Nick, though. Did you meet with the abutters?
Yes, I met with the abutters. I met on site with, I think there were 4 or 5 people there. We since had the property staked out to show them where the retaining wall is going to go, where the building corners are, the top of the retaining walls, and I communicated with them by email over the weekend, but apparently because of the rain, they didn't want to meet out there today. So hopefully I'll get out there with them tomorrow or the next day if the weather's good.
Very good.
Can you clear up one thing, Walter? When we look at the stakes, it says face of the wall. That's the wall.
Their side.
When you say face of the wall, that's on the building side or their
No,
side?
I'm
That's
sorry.
the
The
end of the wall.
face of the wall is on their side, so they know the limit of where the wall is going to be.
Okay.
Actually, I think it's a foot off that. That's the face where the wall is going to the foot off the property line.
Okay.
And we gave them the elevation for top of wall there too.
Okay. And then Phil and I had done a site inspection. So Phil, if you have some observations you'd like to share.
Yeah, thank you, Jennifer. So yeah, we as you noted, Nick, we saw the stakes where the corner of the buildings were going to go. It does look pretty tight up against the property line there. And then we also noticed that there were, Jennifer, were there 4 or 5 Japanese maple trees?
I think 6 red maples.
Red maples, is that what it was? It looked like that they were plantings that were done for that development. that are going to be basically their proposed building area is going to be uprooting those. Just as mentioned, just wanted to mention that. Just also would like to maybe possibly personally would like to see some more details on how that swale is going to work, the stone swale, because kind of looking at the light detailing that you guys have, I don't quite see how that's supposed to work with catching all of the roof drain flow, all the flow from the parking lots, and also the flow from the abutting neighborhood behind the building.
Yeah, because it's a right angle.
Well, they're good comments, but they're not ones I can answer. That's we'll have to let the engineers work that out with your peer review, I guess.
No, understood.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd be interested to see what the peer review has to say with that.
Yeah. I'm told it works. So we'll see.
That is, if I may, just for the record, Eric Dias, registered professional engineer, Strong Point Engineering. I'm doing the peer review on this. That was actually one of the comments in the blast that I had sent to Jennifer. And just to clarify, by the time we were given authorization to move forward with this review, I don't think we had time to do a full nuts and bolts head to toe review. So we wanted to get some comments at least before the meeting tonight. So we focused on sort of the broad stroke items, the ones that have the potential to impact the design. There may be a few comments to come, change this pipe size or whatever it is, but more things that are minor and easy to work out. So we wanted to kind of flag those. Once this meeting is done, based on what we talked about tonight, I will take to trying to complete the review and issuing a formal letter by the end of this week, if not sooner. And certainly with Jennifer's involvement, I'm glad to meet with ET and go over it all.
Thank you, Eric.
Thank you.
Okay. Any additional questions or comments from the commission at this time? I am just, Jen, did you have something to add? Sorry, I saw.
No, I just saw a hand go up. So when you're ready, you have a button.
So if anyone is here for public comment, please raise your hand. I see one.
Yep, 1 sec.
Hello, good evening, everyone, again.
Good evening. Just a reminder, please introduce yourself for the record, name and address.
Absolutely. So Camille Smalls, address is 47 Windchime Road, South Easton, Mass. Zip code, we all know, 02375. So you can't see my face. I'm multitasking right now, but I did want it to be on here. I was able to catch Eric and Philip's notes, and that I just want to ditto that. That is extremely the number one concern that we have brought up to Nick when we met with him on, I believe it was last week. We did not get a follow-up time to meet with him again today, so I'm not sure where that email went, but we did try to reach out to him, Mike specifically, to ask a few more questions because we did realize where they were staking the area is exactly extremely close directly to my house. So I think, Jen, you said you've been out there. So if it's the red house, that's my house. I just wanted to ditto the concerns that we have brought up to Nick that Philip just mentioned literally verbatim. Philip, I was like, oh my God, was he in my brain? Yeah, you are. So it's just, when we met with Nick, everything was, fine and good. Our concerns are that with the swelling, that with the wall, with the rain, as again, it is raining today. I don't know if it's a coincidence to just say this happens on rainy days, so we can see how my backyard does swell up extremely bad. And I do not think that the structure being there and then the 4-foot brick wall or however material they're going to use is going to stop that downpouring of rain and things of that nature to come in. So I just wanted to give just a few thoughts on that, again, just to take in the consideration that if we knew this was going to be a building placed behind the house, we would have never been there. A huge concern is also the depreciation of our home value when we're getting ready to sell, because I don't want to It's very difficult. A lot of our community is having extreme concerns right now with this going up. It's giving a lot of us anxiety about it, and we're trying to just navigate this process together, be cohesive, be collaborative, be neighborly, right? And just try to have a betterment for everybody. But I just think just naturally how we are positioned and how that the yard structure is higher up. It's on a hill. So anything regrading is not really possible to happen. And all of that water is just still going to flood. And then there goes the problem of our basement now reflooding again. So this is an extreme concern of, my household and just safety and just things that we have to take into accountability when we're not looking at dollar signs, but the well-being of a community, a whole entire 36 homes that will be affected by this build.
Thank you for your comment.
Thank you guys so much. Appreciate it.
If anyone else would like to give public comment, please raise your hand. Mike, I saw your hand up.
No others.
So, all this said, sounds like we got our work cut out for us, and we're looking at a continuance to April 28th. I almost said 18th. Does that work?
That works for us.
Okay. All right. Motion to continue 290 Turnpike Street to the April 18, 2025 meeting of the Easton Conservation Commission.
Was it April 18th or April 28th?
April
28th. 28th.
Okay.
Is that okay?
Yeah, Claire, one more time. What date is it? I'm sorry.
April 28th.
April 28th. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Vecchio second.
Carol motion, Vecchio second. Roll call vote. Carol, aye.
Beatty, aye.
Vecchio, aye.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night. Up next is certificates of compliance. First is 10 Beaver Dam Road. I feel like we just lost everybody.
Okay, well, I promoted Craig, but I guess he doesn't want to come. 10 Beaver Dam Road, the septic system is done, but it's not fully stabilized yet. It's pretty much just dirt in the background.
Okay. Here's Craig.
Hello.
Hi, Craig.
Sorry, that took a little while to get me up there. I didn't hear if you read off what we're here for, but 10 Beaver Dam Road, certificate of compliance for the projects. File 18.
I think the concern that we have at the moment is just lack of stabilization.
Right, they just say 2 weeks ago they were having some trouble getting the final grading over the septic. We staked it out for them. They got it finalized, and obviously they were working at the end of winter, so there is no lawn in place other than loamed and seeded, so nothing has come in yet. They did leave the sediment controls in place when I drove by last week. I assume they're still there, but you're correct, there is no lawn at this time.
So it's more appropriate for a partial unless there's a closing coming up and you want to wait until the next meeting and try to seed it again before then.
Well, they are trying to sell it. They were, it wasn't really, I know that's their concern and not necessarily the commission's, but they tell us these things at the last minute that they're in the middle of a sale. So if you're not comfortable with a complete, a partial might be good enough for the sale. I mean, the lawn's going to come in. They graded it properly.
Yeah, I mean, I would imagine whoever's buying it's going to want that stabilized anyway. All right, so we'll go with a partial COC for now and circle back for a full when it stabilizes.
Okay, so do I wait till the lawn's coming in to reconnect? Assume,
Yeah.
see what kind of spring we have.
Well, the condition is mow at least twice, so it should be fully stabilized when they come back for a full COC.
Right. Okay, I guess we would ask for a partial.
Right, motion to issue a partial certificate of compliance for 10 Beaver Dam Road.
Spady, second.
Carol motion, Spadia second, roll call vote. Carol, I.
Spady, aye.
Vecchio, aye.
Thank you, Craig.
Thank you.
Up next is 0 Depot Street, Town of Easton, COC for pavement reconstruction, new sidewalks, new drainage infrastructure.
So I would hold off on that one. The conditions require them to post some signs, and I'm not aware that the signs are up yet.
Okay.
You want to hold off on 0 Depot, but you can do all 87 Depot, the Queesit Commons, 499 Bay Road, and 36 Mechanic under one motion if you like.
All right. Motion, so no action taken on 0 Depot Street.
Correct.
Motion to issue a certificate of compliance, 87 Depot Street, Queesit Commons, 499 Bay Road, 36 Mechanic Street.
Vecchio, second.
Carol motion, Vecchio second, roll call vote. Carol, I.
Spady, aye.
Vecchio, aye.
All right. So we're turning to enforcement.
Yes, and so I've been meeting with the trustees, the management company, and the contractors. They are on track for restoring the violations. That's it for them.
Okay.
Mhm.
It's nice when enforcement's one item.
Yes. Well, that's all I put on the agenda. That's not all there is.
Well, we'll take it at one. Let's keep it small. Board discussion. First up is sign conservation restriction for 55 and 59 Pond Street with the trustees.
Correct. The trustees purchased the property. There was a CPC grant before I got here that was approved to do a conservation restriction on that. Division of Conservation Services finally finished their review. We're getting everything signed now, and so now it's your turn to make a motion to approve the CR and sign it. I do need original signatures though, so that means I need you guys to come in and sign it, please.
Okay. So you need a motion for the restriction itself.
Correct.
Motion to approve the conservation restriction for 55 and 59 Pond Street.
Vecchio, second.
Carol motion, Vecchio second, roll call vote. Carol, I.
Spady, aye.
Vecchio, aye.
You.
And then minutes, which always has me missing Al. Motion to approve the minutes of 2/10/25 and 3/17/25.
Spady, second.
Carol motion, Spady second, roll call vote. Carol, I.
Spady, aye.
Vecchio, aye.
And then we have a presentation on the bylaw regulation
Yes.
revisions. So I am going to make a motion before we do that, if that's okay.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
So sorry, Ryan.
It's a warm up, Ryan.
I'm cutting you short again.
You're
just,
not, it's just for a few minutes for the
just for a few minutes. So motion for a 5-minute recess. We'll be back by 7:45.
Vecchio, second.
Carol motion, Vecchio second, roll call vote. Carol, I.
Spady, aye.
Vecchio, aye.
See you back. All right, Ryan, when we go back on, you have my undivided attention and my bias as a Stonehill alum.
I did not know that. That is very exciting.
All right, everybody's back. Let's just do roll call to establish quorum. Carol present.
Spady present.
Vecchio present.
Am I good to go?
Ready when you are.
All right, hold on. Let me share my screen first. Okay. So I think it's been a while since I've spoken. So I think the biggest thing here is to just show you guys what I've been up to.
Please.
So far through this, I think this is the regulations. This is not anything official. I know this is on an official record, so I think it should be stated that I'm just making suggestions in a random, Google Doc. I'm not changing anything at all so far. But what me and Jen have done is we've literally sat down, put the regulations up on a TV, and we've walked through them, highlighted things that we want to change in the future. We just don't quite have the language yet. And we've just gone through to try and make it make more sense, I guess. There are a lot of times where the language itself just doesn't make a lot of sense, or it's not really applicable to what the Conservation Commission is normally doing. So we're removing certain things, we're adding things like holes we need to fill. And then as I continue to work down, you guys you can read through it. I could send you a copy if you want, but what I've mostly been doing with my time is writing the preambles for each resource area section. So these preambles, if I could get down to one, oh, no, wrong one. These preambles are basically to inform citizens about why these areas are important, right? This is the one for vernal pools, and this is supposed to just, I guess, contextualize it. A lot of citizens don't exactly have a good grasp on what these resource areas are, what these things mean. So by telling them, hey, this is what this is, this is why it's important, this is why you should care, it should better inform citizens and, make them a bit more, I guess, empathetic to the Conservation Commission, or just for them to understand what we're trying to do here and protect these areas.
Yeah, I think the vast majority of our enforcement issues are in front of us because people just plain old didn't understand what they were doing.
Exactly. Right. Like that's what I see with a lot of the dumping is that people just do it because they had no other idea, right? They didn't know. And that's totally fine. We should help to educate them, right? So we've done that. We've also just reworked some things, put some things into, do you have something, Ben? Sorry. But we just reworked some things. There were a couple things that were like, they would be in definitions and critical characteristics where they should have been in presumptions, or it should have been in performance standards. So we're just trying to streamline the process. The other big thing I've been working on has been a preamble for ACEC and a preamble for what we're calling changing weather patterns. So the preamble for the ACEC is just to let citizens know why ACECs are important, how an area is to get designated as an ACEC, and then what the areas are. So in this one, I included, as best I could, a description of literally where within the town these two ACECs fall, so that people can have at least somewhat of an understanding as to whether or not their property falls within it. And then also explaining why we have these as ACECs, why they're important, and why people should care.
And we hyperlink the maps.
Yes, I could add that in before we finalize this, definitely. Yeah, this and the changing weather patterns are very first draft, by the way. And then this one, Jen, how much can I say about why we're using this specific language?
What do you mean? It's not a secret.
Okay. All right. So certain words around climate change have become very politicized. Jen and I thought it would be best if we used the term changing weather patterns, as it is something that's a bit more relatable and it is more neutral than other words that we could use. And this preamble just goes into, it basically says, hey, the town of Easton recognizes that this thing is happening. we have a vested interest in trying to protect our resource areas and protect citizens from the effects of these changing weather patterns, and that citizens should do their best to educate themselves and to understand why weather patterns are going to be changing, how it will affect us, and specifically, if we look like right here on the dock, what citizens are likely to see in Easton. Because I think there's a certain, idea that we're in Massachusetts, we're in the Northeast, we're not going to see as much of a change, but we are still going to see change, and it is change that will affect citizens. The biggest thing that I've found is that flooding is going to be a really big problem in the coming years, as if the weather patterns continue to change. So yeah, just better informing citizens on things like that. But that's
I
really,
think that makes sense. That's language I've seen used in other bylaws, and I think it makes sense.
okay. That's really all I had for you guys, just updating y'all on what I've been doing.
So maybe we'll just take a slower run through it and
Okay.
go to, each of the areas where we have made some changes. Yeah, right from the beginning.
All right, so this is vernal pools. The first thing going here is the preamble, which involves, talking about amphibian populations, why it's important. What else did I have here? Some of the important services that they have, so like flood mitigation, providing water for habitats in the forest and things like that.
Good. Yeah, the next part, just making sure people understand how far is the buffer zone. The additional buffer zone, which a lot of people forget about with the ACEC. So Ryan has put them in the definition section so it's clearer when people go through it. And then the presumptions.
Change much there.
They're significant. So then we still have to go through the interests listed in the bylaw and then list the ones that are applicable to vernal pools. And then D are the performance standards. So different standards for if you're in the boundary, different standards if you're in the buffer zone, which we haven't really started to look at yet, but you have something coming up, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, no, we didn't do that part yet. Okay. So reservoirs, lakes, and ponds, that's something that we worked on most recently. So
yeah,
I'll let you take over there.
Yeah, reservoir, lakes, and ponds. This one was very fun to do. So again, the preamble, informing citizens why they're important, why we should care, talking about the specific buffer zones as well, and kind of the first 50 feet versus the back 50 feet, because I know that's differentiated in the bylaws, and that's something that can be confusing to people. Our definitions, I don't think we touched definitions. Yeah, we didn't touch definitions too much.
So this is different than the state law because lakes, reservoirs, lakes, and ponds is about the water. Wetland Protection Act doesn't protect the water. It protects the bank, the land underneath it, the buffer zone next to it. In the bylaw, you're protecting the actual water within the reservoir and the lake. And so that's what the performance standards should focus on.
And so mainly, I guess, for number one in the performance standards, that's still a work in progress because the language, at least Jen and I thought it was really confusing. So we're trying to work through that.
Do the first sentence. It may have a 100-foot buffer zone and it may have a 200-foot riverfront area. Well, which we need to clarify which one is that. What is the actual jurisdiction? It can't be one, or it can't be like, oh, maybe it's this one, maybe it's another one. So that's something we need to look at.
And then we also just had some, jotted notes for the rest of the performance standards, right? We want to talk about protection of water quality to ensure that there's a vegetated buffer, that any water discharge requires pre-treatment. So just trying to add these small little things to the bylaws that will cumulatively protect these areas better. Another one, like at the bottom, number 6, allowing exotic invasive species removal easily. That's, I think when Jen and I talked about it, it's a little bit harder logistically and legally than we wish it was, but maybe that's something that we can work on.
Yeah, these are not actual reg
No, by no
revisions.
means
These are
are they.
us going through saying, we should talk about this, we should talk about that, and figure out how to word that correctly.
Yeah.
So they're just ideas at the moment. Does that make sense to everybody?
Yes.
Okay. Next, we skipped right on over this one, except for the preamble.
Yep. Don't get excited, Ben.
Like, because we
Don't
just,
get excited.
that would take his entire internship if we focused on that. So we're gonna go for the big bang for the buck here first.
All right, now we're at inland banks. Again, preamble, same idea. All right, this is where, because there were a couple presumptions where it was just saying go look at the law. So we thought it would be more beneficial for me to go in there and actually list out what are the like reasons and the significance based on what is listed earlier in the bylaw as to why we want to protect these areas. I think that gives a better chance of people actually understanding it, because if they see, you know, values specified in 503-1B, they're not going to go look, you know? And then that was the big change we made on that one. We have vegetated wetlands. Again, the preamble.
Yeah, we didn't get to this one yet, really.
Yeah. I had added one thing about protection of groundwater quality. Again, like really listing out why we care, why it's significant based on the reasons listed earlier in the bylaw. Same thing. Land under. This one took me a while. This was a good one. I like this one. I still need to talk about freshwater mussels. Jen enlightened me that we have 12 species of those. I had no clue about that. So that was a fun little thing to learn. Again, just clarifying exactly why we find this significant based on the bylaws. Land subject to flooding, same thing with the preamble. This is really important. I guess the preamble here is really important because I talked a lot about the 100 versus 500-year floodplain, and this is where it's important that people understand that there is a higher chance that their land is going to flood within, you know, the next half century or so. Like that, these are very increased odds. So it's something that people should be aware of at the least. Again, clarifying here the reasons of significance. And then we added a bunch to the performance standards for bordering and isolated land subject to flooding. So any calculation to determine the floodplain should be using the most recent data, different things like that. We really wanted to look into trees versus lawn and how the planting of trees will directly affect flooding, how it could help to mitigate flooding, and even other things outside of trees, because I know trees can be kind of a large commitment for homeowners in terms of their early on maintenance and then also their size. So if we could try to find something else maybe that works really well as flood mitigation, that's a bit easier for them to implement or maintain, then it could be beneficial for us too. Buffer zones, last preamble I haven't done. Sorry, guys. Sorry to disappoint on that one. I know we're really excited. And riverfront. Awesome. Love riverfront area. It's my favorite. So I wrote the preamble for this one as well. Again, telling them why it's important, why they should care. This one is very important in terms of flood mitigation. as well. And I think we clarified. Yeah, we clarified the presumption of significance. Jen, did we go through? I don't think we hit performance standards on this one just yet.
Yeah, we didn't do riverfront area yet.
Okay. And then I think that was as far as we got. I guess stormwater down at the bottom is another thing we had put a pin in that we want to talk about going forward, is the stormwater management standards. So that's something else that hopefully I'll be able to update you guys on next meeting. But I think that's all I have.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Awesome. Awesome work.
Looking good.
So does anyone have ideas for Ryan for something to clarify in any of the performance standards or any of the resource areas where you've noticed, something with a previous project? Oh, next time we should check something and make sure it's right. Other than riverfront.
Yeah, I know.
Because we're not there yet.
Hmm.
It's a little tricky because we have to make sure that you have the state law, you have the wetland local bylaw, which has to be more stringent than the state law. But that's kind of a delicate area, right? Because it shouldn't be too difficult. You're not trying to make things difficult. You're just trying to protect the resource areas. And so when you start to think about performance standards, then you start to run through all the scenarios and go, oh, that might not work for this type of project. It'll work for that type of project. And I don't know. Are you lumpers or splitters?
I think it's what waivers are for.
Yeah. Well, that's a good point.
Yeah.
Good point.
I think part of the problem that I have with our regs is like you have to pretend at some point someone's going to read it and need to understand what they say.
Sure.
And I think we're making strides towards it, but they're just so, and they are in pretty much every town, so cumbersome, and there's so much back and forth and ambiguity that I think oftentimes the folks who come before us who are professionals haven't even really delved in or read them, and they're just going off of what generally has been allowed. I don't know that there's a
professionals will generally read them, but they know they need to read them.
Right.
Engineers, surveyors, not so much.
Yeah. and that's not even a criticism to people who come before us. It's just there's this weird line that we have to walk between like spoon feeding and also protecting ourselves in a way that we have what we need in these documents. And like, I think in some ways we just need to decide, like, is this a public facing document that's supposed to be a handbook and user friendly, or is this something that is facing people who work in this on a daily basis? Like, I'm not sure how useful our reg book is to an average resident who picks it up and has a question about their yard. And part of that is because it's dependent on site survey and conditions that they're just not going to be able to assess absent hiring a professional to do that. I feel like I just went on a tirade that wasn't actually invited there, but that's just kind of been my issue with these from the jump is they achieve a goal, and I think we want them to achieve a bunch of goals, and I just don't think that's what they're supposed to be. And I wonder if the solution isn't maybe, I don't know, a 3-page handbook that condenses like, hey, this is how we see it. An infographic that talks about what the interplay between the bylaws, the regs, and the Wetland Protection Act, so that people understand that it's not, you click one or the other. But it is, I mean, it's a really complicated regulatory scheme.
Yeah, no, I would agree, Ben. Yeah.
So how do we improve it? I don't know.
I guess, I mean, the way that you're thinking I do like, in the sense of that, like, I can add as many preambles as I want. We can move information around as much as we want. When people open that document, they're scared by how many pages there are, and a lot of them don't really understand the wording of it, right? Like,
Yeah.
there's a certain level of language that you have to use. And again, like Jen said, we have to protect ourselves, right? And I think it's hard to overlap the protections that we need to have and it being accessible to everyone. So I definitely, like, yes, I would 100% agree with what you're saying, Ben.
I also think most people don't know the difference between vernal pool, wetland, riverfront area, bank. Yeah, I mean, the list goes on.
Yes.
But I think the question in the preamble as to why should you care, it's really important. Again, I just don't know. I don't really know who our audience is in this. And I think everything you did makes them better. But like, if I wanted to explain to my neighbor why you should care about a vernal pool, I'd show them photos of salamander eggs and maybe play them a chorus of what my backyard sounds like right now.
Yeah.
Like that. Like, that's why you should care.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes, I mean, that's the public education component. Regulations are legal documents that
Yeah.
have to be written in legalese, right? So it's not always going to be as user-friendly as we would like.
Yeah. And that's my issue.
We write it as closely as possible to English, but it still has to have the shall not, may not,
Yeah. Legalese.
the language so that it can be upheld, if it goes to court, which luckily we almost never. But we certainly haven't denied anything since I've been here, and we've had one appeal.
Yeah. No, we try. I mean, I think we really do work iteratively with applicants to try to make something make sense, and very rarely does it not. But I think the initial question here was what could we do to make them better? Yeah. And I don't know. I would like to spend a little more time with your revisions. I think everything I saw tonight was really good.
Yeah.
So yeah, Ryan, you can, do you want him to keep working on it, and then maybe before the next meeting, we'll send the most recent update versus sending it now and then updating again before the next meeting?
I think that makes sense.
All right, then I will definitely get that to you guys.
And do you want that separate from the agenda packet?
That would be helpful.
Okay, cool. If we're done with that, we just have updates.
What do you got for updates?
Nice, Ryan. Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan. Good
Thank
work.
you, guys.
Thanks, Ryan.
Two things. Town meeting anywhere else I had seen it was the 20th, and I thought that's weird. We don't usually have it on a Tuesday. And then today I saw it posted for the 19th, which is our meeting night, which means on May we have to change our meeting from the 19th to the 12th.
Okay.
That's the only night we can do it, because the 5th, 5th is too soon. 26th is Memorial Day weekend. Memorial Day. So
just give me one moment. Let me check the calendar. Not that my calendar is going to impact what we have to do.
It's the 12th, or you have to pick a Tuesday.
Yeah, I can't do that week. I'll make it work.
You could always make it Tuesday the 20th if you want. But that's odd. Then I have to remind everybody, it's Tuesday, it's Tuesday.
I mean, it would be better for me, but I don't want to screw up everybody's schedules.
I mean, I can do it on that day.
I'm fine to do it that day as well.
All right. Jen, are you going to kill me?
No.
You just got, Tuesday,
Tuesday the 20th.
I just have to send multiple reminders and you'll be like, no, stop reminding us. Okay. So Tuesday, 5:20.
Do you need a motion or that's just a public notice thing?
Nope, that's just a scheduling item.
Alright.
The other thing is we received the soil sampling estimate for Tufts Farm.
What's the estimate?
A little over 12,000 to complete the soil sampling to find the extent of lead.
And is that just in the area of the parking lot or is that across the entire property?
Just in the parking lot where we propose to work. Again, lead elevations were slightly above what DEP allows, and that is primarily due to the orchard being on the property.
Yeah. So now, not to be smart, but like, how much do we know what mitigation is, or we can't determine mitigation until we do the sampling?
Well, so the sampling is just to determine we know roughly where it is. One sample got a hit slightly higher than it's supposed to be. So now they kind of go around it to try to figure out the extent of the slightly higher amounts of lead. And then once they have it, yep, it's this square, rectangle, whatever, this is the shape. Then we remove the soil and we put new soil in. That's
And
the
this
mitigation. That's it.
This is something that we're obligated to do? Like by DEP, right? We had to do additional testing.
The mass contingency plan. So
I might just be, again, splitting hairs here, but can we just mitigate? Or we can't mitigate because we don't know where?
well, I don't know what you mean by mitigate.
So if the solution to this is
then
taking,
you have to remove the soil.
so if the solution to this though is taking out contaminated soil, and we know we have at least some contaminated soil, is there any world where it makes sense to allocate the budget to mitigation and begin just removing contaminated soil, or no, because we can't determine the location of contaminated soil?
Right, we don't know what.
DEP requires you to determine the extent of contaminants.
All right, so we're stuck doing it.
Yes.
All right. Do you need a vote?
No, it's just for your information. We had some money set aside to fix the barn at Tufts. We'll have to use that for the soil mitigation.
Can I ask, what is Dan's thoughts on that? So I know just the barn had been, I mean, I know it's kind of, our hands are tied, but I just out of curiosity.
No, I just got the estimate today and sent it to Dan, so he
Yeah,
will
no,
have a copy of it. So we haven't talked about it yet. Really, it's we have to do it. Do we have the funding? Where did the funding come from? Okay.
Right.
Notify you. We're going to have to change how we plan to spend some of the budget. And then move forward. I mean,
Frustrating.
it's very frustrating because the initial soil contamination was many, many years ago when it could have been taken care of then, not when we were trying to build a parking lot. So,
yeah.
But we know about it. We have to take care of it. So,
yeah.
We'll continue moving forward, but it would have been easier to do many years ago when there was more money. Yeah. And that's it.
All right. Final agenda item. Any pertinent item not reasonably anticipated by the chair? Seeing none. Motion to adjourn.
Vecchio second.
Carol motion, Vecchio second. Roll call vote. Carol, aye.
Speed, yeah.
Vecchio aye.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Have a great day.
See you soon.